Hey guys, welcome back to another weekly horoscope. Today we're going to be looking at the astrology of August 31st through to September 6th of 2021. My name's David and I am your astrologer from HC Astrology. Thanks for being here and thanks for all your support, liking, commenting, and subscribing. It all goes a super long way. As you can see, I'm still traveling, currently in St. John's, Newfoundland, which is part of Canada. And that means I'm probably not going to be doing any blog posts again this week. But I am still available for consultation. And if you'd like to book a consultation with me, just head over to my website and you can use the scheduling system to book something in for whatever's available. Description, all the links are in my description box. So let's just open up the astrology for this week and get into it because there is quite a lot of it going on. So for the most part, this week really kind of continues this kind of lovely pocket of astrology this year with Venus still in Libra. And for the most part, this is a big like lunar week. There's a lot of lunar transits going on, but there is some really nice things also happening, some kind of interesting things as well. Probably the weirdest thing happening is going to be let's see, look at my annotator here. Will be Mars's opposition to Neptune while Moon kind of squares Venus. So that should be kind of difficult or strange, a bit different. And then later on, the really nice things going on this week are kind of at the end of the week, actually. So September 5th, especially with Mercury trine Saturn and the Moon sextile to Venus. Meanwhile, at the very end of the week, and this kind of really like goes on into next week, is Venus's trine to Jupiter. So let's kind of break it all down one by one as we usually do, and start the week off from August 31st, which is a Tuesday, from St. John's, Newfoundland. And you can just adjust your timing to wherever you are. Transits are still going to be the same. Maybe they won't be the exact same time, but they're all going to mean the same things. And I'm looking at the kind of overall astrology. It may not be applicable to you on a personal level. Maybe it's about somebody else. Maybe it's about a situation at large. This is the background astrology. Okay, so let's start with the first things through this day. It's mostly a lunar day, although there are there's a square of the Moon to Mars early in the day, but then trines with Venus and Jupiter. So overall, pretty great day. So let's start with Moon's trine to Venus. Now we have also, by the way, you can see also that Mercury is in Venus now too. In Libra now too, alongside Venus. So this kind of thoughts and communications, exchanges, markets, things that we're pondering, measuring, comparing are now in Venus's air sign, which means that all those kind of mercurial matters that I just mentioned will be concerned with balance, judgment, fairness, relationships, social nuance in general. There's going to be a lot more of making measured comparisons as it comes to relationships in general. Realizing that things are not necessarily perfect, but we can be a part of our exchanges that keeps things amiable, friendly, pleasant in general. There's more relaxed vibes to Mercury in Libra too, as opposed to Mercury being in its exaltation in Virgo, where it's very hyperactive, very analytical, figuring things out. Now it's in Libra, so maybe we're a bit more concerned with keeping conversations going as opposed to stopping them, keeping it smooth, connecting with others in kind of more pleasing ways, maybe stepping away from confrontation or difficult circumstances and conversations and peoples, to kind of keep some things more pleasing, maybe on some levels in a superficial way, but overall to keep things more amiable. So it's going to be more about being polite, not so much about being necessarily direct or confrontational, maybe about letting things go rather than facing them, head on. Now, this is not the kind of thing, these are not the kind of tools you want to use for your whole life in general, but maybe for now, they're going to work in your favor. They're going to work more smoothly. Venus is in Libra too. So that social nuance is especially emphasized. And, maybe we have to use our social lubricant to keep things going, to keep the conversation going, to keep things pleasant on a general level. And Moon is also opening the day with the trine to Venus. So this kind of further emphasizes the social substance of what's happening right now. Communicating and exchanging in well-received and supportive manners, being, both the Moon is in a mercurial sign. So what was I just saying about Mercury being in Libra in general? So being able to maybe on some way say what we need to say in a manner that is both pleasant and easy, relaxed and cool, being cool, keeping our cool. These things are going to be received well and probably accepted more openly and readily. Things could be a bit more exciting too, especially with the Moon moving off that conjunction with the North Node, feeling like there's been a big exciting amount of action in the recent time that's passed in the last 24 hours or so. And we're able to enjoy that moment. Now, things kind of shift through the day, of course. Whoops, go back to hours. And Moon then perfects a square to Mars. And so there could be some trouble, could be some turbulence, maybe some challenges, danger of some kind, as it has to do with our thoughts in relationships, especially now that Mercury's in Libra. So I'll just highlight what's going on here. Moon's also making that square to Neptune, but I'll break that down in a second first. So in general, I wouldn't be too concerned about these squares. It may just mean that the Moon is starting to reveal something in relationships that is contestable, sharp-edged, maybe volatile, or even angry on some level. We may also be realizing that something about relationships and those exchanges that we are maybe ourselves angry about, but do we have to communicate those yet? Or do we swallow it for the time being? It's hard to say. Maybe things change. Moon's going to be, like I said, moving into that square with Neptune shortly after. And I don't have too much to say about this, except for that you can see that Mars is about to perfect the opposition to Neptune. So it's kind of, and it's also related to the square to Mars as well. So there's something contestable, something volatile also going on in the background that the Moon is trying to reveal on some level, or is at least sensing. There's a sense of it as the Moon's moving into the new moon phase. It's getting closer to the sun, so getting darker. Maybe we're closing our minds to the situation in order to keep that peace, right? It may just be the feeling that the fantasy or dream that's taking place on some level, or fantasies and dreams in general, are not all that cracked up to be, or maybe they're just not realistic, or maybe they're not going to meet our needs, or we just don't understand really what's going on yet. It may be that a lot has happened quite quickly, and now we're trying to digest that. It may come with some fear involved, especially with Mars there, and it may come with a little bit of the rose-colored glasses being taken off. And on some level, reality's coming back. They're starting to slightly be more aware that there's something foggy going on, something confused. And although we don't necessarily have to be too concerned with it, it doesn't feel yet like such a big deal. There is something beyond the fog that maybe is unsettling on some level. So yeah, and then reason why I'm not so concerned with it is because before the day ends, we get that great trine, that really nice trine to Jupiter. So this is the reason I don't think those two squares are too much to be concerned about in general. Like there is that opposition. You can see it forming with Mars to Neptune. But overall, this week is pretty good. There's a lot of good stuff going on. So some of the more harder things happening, I don't think it's so much to be concerned with. And I think that Tuesday is really about that, with that opening to the trine to Venus and then closing with the trine to Jupiter. So the two benefics are being connected through the day. And it's helping us to deal with our feelings, deal with the way that we're starting to understand things, starting to integrate things, starting to be in our circumstance and our bodies and such. I also like this because it has this vibe of like things are generally coming together. Things are being brought together, disparate elements are being drawn together to the same goals, feelings, environments. They're moving towards a social and connecting affair of some kind. And we're going to see this again coming up through the week as well. This is the sense that things are starting to work out just as they should be. Even if there's some turbulence along the way, things are working out. Things do not have to be perfect for them to work in general. They just need to work. This day is kind of like connecting with something or someone that is comparatively much better than we had before, I think, too. Be that in relationship, circumstance, social situation, or the way things are progressing in general. Perhaps we're also realizing that what we had before just was not that great to begin with. So even if something is remotely better, it feels like a significant improvement. And we are maybe seeing the proverbial brighter side to the flipped coin, so to speak, or the silver lining on some level, seeing how there's a lot to be grateful for in what we have already. And I think this is going to be the overall theme of this week. So let's move forward into Wednesday. And now we're in September. Hold on. So now we're in September. And first thing that happens is the moon moves into Cancer. So enters into domicile. And it's kind of a minimal day in terms of transits for the most part. But the moon moves into domicile, like I said, but it immediately makes that square to Mercury. So we get this kind of energy shift. Things become more lunar, more about devotion, memory, comfort, involving ourselves in some sort of nostalgia, echoes of the past on some level, bringing the past into the present. And this is all great for the moon, for our emotions, temperaments, bodies, and overall social circumstantial things. But with the day opening up to that square to Mercury, it does not really bode so well for communications or exchanges, especially in relationships, especially in things that are more intimate and emotional. We may just be feeling all too sensitive, maybe intoxicated on some level by our feelings, by a romantic situation, maybe escaping into something more comforting, romantic, and maybe grounding ourselves in some sort of temporary illusion to function in a more maybe practical or functional matter. It's kind of contrasting to those more functional things. Mercury. We're just not necessarily in a space to deal with reality today, so to speak. So there's a lot to indulge in at this time, and maybe to relieve ourselves of what our body is asking for. There's a lot that our body maybe emotionally needs, that is requesting from us. Our bodies are requesting something from us. So I feel like on some level, this is not necessarily the day to push things forward, like Mercury might want to push things in terms of a conversation or some sort of exchange. And maybe it's just not that day to do it, to say or do things that are inappropriate, especially. It's inappropriate to whatever circumstances are at hand. So use our instincts, use our judgment to try and, be more connected to the present and to what our bodies are saying, what the situation is saying. Because if it's not one that's about, being contestable, making a disruption of some kind, it may be not worth getting involved in that. So check in with your body, feel the feels, but do not necessarily act on them, especially if you feel like you have to say something. Maybe allow yourself to feel and indulge in those feelings, get into it, do something nurturing, especially for yourself. And maybe even indulge in the past, have a nostalgic moment. But I would say definitely don't try to disrupt anything that disrupts that kind of a vibe. It's not necessarily time to push so much as it's time to reflect and to bathe on some level in the silence. All right, so that's basically it for Thursday. So let's just go right into, Wednesday. So let's just go right into Thursday as the moon continues through Cancer. So the fields really continue. And the day is going to really open with moon making a sextile to the sun. So things are getting closer to the new moon. And how has the story in general been unfolding since the beginning of the last lunar cycle 4 weeks ago? What adjustments are necessary to be made in order for the story to continue, or whatever things we initiated at the time to wrap up, to see some ending to them, some culmination. Not culmination, but like a resting place, for things to come to rest, for them to consolidate and finish up. So where are we in the story, and what is our setting as it comes to the story at this time? Do we get more involved or don't we? Do we keep the peace or don't we? This could be a time to maintain harmony, I suppose, rather than destroy or push things for our own self-centered interests or gains. It's about, like I said before, checking in with the circumstance, checking in with our bodies. What is our body saying? And listen to that maybe a little bit more than what we want from others, or what we want to shift anything with others. So yeah. And then basically the moon then is going to sextile right after with Uranus. So again, there's something disrupting, maybe something that doesn't necessarily sit right, something that has this capacity to affect our emotional comfort zone. But do we need to act on it? Do we follow through on the impulse, maybe to destroy, disrupt, break apart? Or can we adjust things? Can we reharmonize or harmonize things? Can we try to modify the situation in order for things to proceed more smoothly? And then the next thing that happens this day is we get Mars perfecting the opposition to Neptune. So I'll just forward that. And this is going to be happening as you can see, Moon is starting to apply that square to Venus. So maybe if there was something that needed to be said, this could be the time when you can say that. You may have a hard time holding back what it is you want to say in general, or what you want to push onto something forward, especially in terms of relationship or connection. But then simultaneously, this is like getting that proverbial popping of the balloon of fantasy, like the bubbles being popped with Mars opposing Neptune. And I think, like with Moon in Cancer, there's this capacity to have and capability to have strength in our feelings, expressing, connecting to our feelings, while Venus in Libra has this capability to keep peace and be amiable, looking at similarities, not the differences. So in this case, these two forces are kind of at odds, with the Moon making that square to Venus. It may be that we have to express something even if it disrupts the peace, even if it does not maintain this enjoyable temperament. This could also be a time to just walk away as well, rather than get involved. We don't have to take responsibility for other people's feelings, and other people's feelings are not necessarily our responsibility. Likewise, our feelings are not the responsibilities of others. So maybe it's time to just deal with our feelings without having to disrupt the vibes of others. Maybe other people are feeling things too. And I think this is like one of those cases where we can remember that the story is not always about us, and we're not always the protagonists in our own lives, so to speak. But then, we also have this Mars Neptune opposition, which is probably the most dynamic part of the week and the situation at large. Mars is essentially this faculty of anger. It's about pushing, forcing, heating up, inflaming. It's volatile. Neptune is the illusion, the oceanic dissolving impulse to escape and delve into the fantasy of something more than this mundane world, right? And then oppositions, which are the nature of Saturn, they're boundary making, they're line drawing, they're contemplative, they're adversarial. So there's this quality to these two forces that is a tension between their natures. They're either going to complement one another or tear each other apart. And I think Mars wants to do something. Mars wants to push through the fantasy, get to the reality, see the other side of something that may just be a dream. Wants to put the proverbial romance under a microscope and dissect it. You know what I mean? Make it into something workable, something that can be used other than just these feelings, these memories, these dreams. But this may not bode well for what Neptune is hiding from us, what is beyond the fog, which with Neptune is never as it seems and is rarely going to provide us with anything that can meet our expectations, which is not the kind of result maybe that Mars is going to sit well with. I could see this being a bit of a hard pill to swallow. Mars is seeking to cut through the bullshit, while Neptune is just providing maybe more and more bullshit, so to speak. There's really nothing there, or whatever there is not really what Mars maybe wants to hear. It's not what Mars wants to see. And I think there's definitely new information coming in, or something is being revealed. Fog is being maybe cleared forcibly on some level. Whatever comes through, though, may not be helpful. It may also just be confusing, and it may not bring any clarity to the situation. There's just nothing there. You know, with Venus, it's often like, if you have expectations during a Neptune, when you have expectations during a big Neptune transit, expect open air, expect smoke and mirrors, cloak and dagger. Confusion may provoke anger at this time. So another reason why maybe it's good to just walk away, because there's going to be tearing between anger and confusion. So let's close up Thursday and move on into Friday, which is a big lunar day. So you can already see there's a lot of action going on. So Moon kind of already perfected that square to Venus, which is why I kind of talked a bit about it more in terms of Thursday. You know, all through that opposition Mars is making to Neptune, which, you know, they're still in the 0 degree range. So it's pretty much exact still. And I somehow also feel like this is also about just knowing how we feel. We know what we're feeling maybe, but we do not need to do necessarily something about it. I think each of us needs to decide actually whether or not we want to act on those feelings at this time, or do we bow out? Do we bow out in order to keep the peace? This is a decision that needs to be made. Moon is also trining with Neptune, right? So maybe what's feeling maybe confusing now before maybe starts to feel okay a little bit. Maybe there's nothing there we need to really understand, but maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not the end of the world. Maybe it's also that the fog is settling. We're seeing the valley we're walking through, and there's something more beautiful going on. Even if the reality doesn't match the fantasy, there's still something beautiful going on that maybe we couldn't comprehend before, and maybe things are not as scary or worth being angry about as before, and that could be relieving on some level. And Moon is also sextiling to Mars at the same time, so I think this is helping the situation. It's cooling it down. The Moon wants to cool, to temper things, to bring things back to the present, and to kind of relieve them on some level. Like it's a soothing light rather than a heating light. So connecting to and being able to modify maybe what forced us the other day, what provoked us to anger in that fog of confusion. Not that the fog has maybe completely settled yet, but maybe we can calm ourselves down, get back to something more peaceful, tempering our tempers in general. The only thing that's kind of a bit off though is we got that Moon is then perfecting an opposition to Pluto. And this could be it could be in some way that whatever was playing out the last 24 hours, this is like that cathartic break. This is like the release that was needed. This is pulling away from the fantasy and the dream into to a reality that's also purging what we were lost in, where we could not see, where our feelings were kind of blinding us, what we weren't realizing. And now we're able to kind of face the fear and maybe and powerfully transform that into a situation, something maybe reborn on some level. There's like a phoenix vibe to this, whatever that situation was that we were trying to force the fog of dream apart, to see through the illusion. And I think that's an interesting last thing that happens that day before Mundane. The only other thing really is that the moon moves into Leo now. And so we get another energy shift. We can find things are going to get a bit more passionate, a bit more concerned with what feels good to us individually, maybe in a bold way, something to prove on some level, something to show off. Maybe we want to strut something. Maybe we feel our egos may have been wounded and we're starting to get back up on our feet on some level. We're like, okay, well, I can get back up on the horse. The moon, though, is an aversion to the sun, which rules over Leo. So where we are and how things are going are not necessarily on task. We may not necessarily we may not be able to see the story or want to understand it at this time, because the two signs that the sun, so the moon is in the sun's sign, but then the sun is in Virgo, and there's no aspectual visuality between them. So this could, in some level, be a disregard for the overall story, to indulge in our individual passions, lusts, pride. We may be more concerned with our authenticity rather than whether or not our authentic selves make sense in this overall story. And that's kind of it for Friday. It's kind of an interesting end to that kind of busyness of the moon through Cancer, which I think is like us trying to get back to ourselves after maybe doing something for somebody else or with somebody else or with other people. Anyway, so the moon then continues, makes that sextile to Mercury. So maybe re-engaging with the conversation now from a different place, from a place of authenticity, maybe saying things with our authentic voice, does not rock the boat maybe too much, but does not get unheard, does not stop maybe the flow of exchange. But, we also get the moon then perfecting that opposition to Saturn. So maybe what's happening to us individually versus what is going on in the rest of the world. Something about the world at large is maybe troublesome to the way we are as individuals, as authentic people. This is kind of maturing us. This is putting down lines between what we are doing in our authentic way of being versus the seriousness of how impermanent maybe and difficult the world can be. This life can be, this living in a very large yet extremely connected world, and how that is actually a very hard place to navigate, very hard to keep our own and be ourselves, and to not put ourselves aside so that the rest of the world can have its way with us, And that is not to say that we should just be, stubborn tyrants without any compromise or ability to see other sides of things. But this is like, the world is just so full of voices, demands, and rules, and ways in which things are that builds this constrained and polarizing kind of existence, that maybe we need to find our side in things. We can't just always be what other people want. Is there some way we can still be ourselves without losing ourselves? Is there a way of being a centralized being in a decentralized world? This is like, okay, give yourself a break. Easy does it. Get a grip. Do what you need to do and be yourself, but don't let your attachment to who you are destroy your contact with the rest of the world, I think. And then, yeah, the moon then kind of keeps going. And then we end the day with the moon squaring to Uranus. So I think this is just maybe some disruptions that don't work with who we are. There's things that are not working with us, not going the way we want them to go, as we want them to be. That doesn't change who we are intrinsically. Just because things are not going our way all the time doesn't mean we have to make ourselves into a different person. We can still be ourselves, even if there's a sudden shock to the circumstances at this time. It's not that we've done anything wrong. We're just being ourselves, but perhaps being ourselves doesn't necessarily work for what others want from us. There's instability and inconsistency, with anything Uranus contacts of any kind, there's going to be instability and inconsistency. But if we can get over ourselves for the time being, allow for us to just be ourselves and accept that that does not necessarily, being ourselves does not necessarily mean we go without problems. We can begin to see the similarities maybe again and not differences if we're able to just accept ourselves as who we are and not just change ourselves because of instability and inconsistency. And that moves us into Sunday. And what's nice about that kind of shift of perspective is we're also moving into you can see all these trines forming. Mercury perfects the trine to Saturn basically first thing Sunday. So let's move into Sunday. And yeah, Mercury's already perfected the trine to Saturn. Likely, this is probably one of the best parts of the week, other than the Venus trine Saturn. Sure, the moon is in this funny place after having a post-Saturn squaring Neptune, squaring Uranus, but the moon is also moving towards the sextile to Venus. So it's also moving towards this opposition to Jupiter. So there is things connecting again. There's also a bigger picture to this context. And with Mercury trining to Saturn, it's like words are being said, words that hold meaning, words that last and that are about commitment, that will take a long time to develop, but are going to go somewhere actually. They acknowledge and respect the dimensions of time as well, that over time, things change. So how we speak now, exchange now, make commitments now, they actually go somewhere. And they can, and even as things change, those commitments can be kept. And we're able to maybe in a commitment discern what is in that exchange from the reality, from the bullshit. And I think also that this day overall emphasizes how good this week is going to be. And sure, there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot to take in. Maybe and everything's perfect. There has been some tensions between ourselves and others, but overall things are working. And subjectively, there's a lot that is good right now that is maybe better than things were. And that is something really to put weight onto, to speak about, to think about, to contemplate, to consider, and to speak more about with others as well. That there's just like a lot to this life and in this world to really be grateful for. And, making a gratitude list, really, it helps me. I know it helps a lot of other people. And maybe, you could make a gratitude list that's bloody endless. If all we do is give ourselves the time and space to sit down and look at it, think about it, talk about it, communicate it, in general, you're going to find there's a lot to be grateful for. And I think, it's really important for us to connect with the good in our lives right now, because the winter is coming, and this is not going to be an easy winter either. So if we're not taking the time now to consider that and to do something about it for our own sanity, then things are not going to be easy down the road. There's going to be problems. There's going to be problems in the world, and they're going to affect us all. So it's really important for us to find those good things, put emphasis on those good things, and to make exchanges that support and help us to deal with the difficulties in life and in this world. So, overall, be nice. Don't be a jerk. It's going to really go a very long way to not be a jerk right now. And in general, of course, uh, people generally appreciate when you're not a jerk. Life is not easy. We don't need more jerks in this world. For like, seriously, just turn on the news and you can really see how little more jerks we need in this world. There's a lot working against us individually as well, regardless of our circumstances. So let's learn to let go of the jerkiness and maybe give ourselves and others a break. I think overall, just don't be a jerk. Anyway, so then the moon's going to sextile with Venus. And I think this is helping with everything we want to say in relationships as well right now, and allowing us to connect with ourselves and with others in a way that isn't so hostile, maybe, that is more harmonizing, that is soft, that is bonding us to those around us, to keep the peace and to find common ground between ourselves and our authenticity and to the people around us. And then also then the moon's going to oppose to Jupiter. And I think this is about seeing the bigger picture, reflecting on something bigger, getting that dose of faith that provides us with a sense that we're a part of something bigger, that there is a bigger world out there than just the little things that separate us. This is Jupiter also bringing things together that are disparate pieces. It's really Jupiter's biggest main job after having retrograded back into Aquarius. So this is kind of this unifying together those things that were once maybe before apart. And that takes us into Monday, because the rest of the day, the moon's just waning through Leo as it moves into Virgo. So now we have the moon in Virgo, Monday, September 6th. And we are going to have those new moon vibes. The moon is in its balsamic phase. The veil between worlds is somewhat blurred. There's a sense of the other side of things, that things are coming to a close, that a new chapter will begin soon. Meanwhile, that's happening, we have that Venus-Pluto square that's been perfecting all through Sunday as well. So we may have already been feeling this. So this is important, I think, really to note, because this relationship between Venus and Pluto is going to be especially important this winter. Venus is going to be stationing retrograde while conjunct Pluto in Capricorn by mid-December, which means that the interactions between Venus and Pluto throughout this Venus cycle right now are very important. This is something to pay attention to, especially maybe in the news or in anything Venus related right now. And maybe it's not necessarily clear exactly what it's all about at this time, but it's important to pay attention to what is happening in Venus types of things that are going to have reversals and extremes this winter. Venus in Libra is about keeping the peace, but Venus in Capricorn is about, realism in relationships, especially. And then Venus with Pluto and Capricorn, it's like hardcore reality check. Has an extremely cathartic and transformative release to it. It will come with a lot of uncertainty, possibly even a lot of fear. But if we can stick it out, this transformation will reestablish extremely strong, resourceful, and deeply transcendental qualities in our relationships that may, for a lot of us, be like nothing we've experienced thus far. That said, it could also destroy us if we're not careful, which is why I think it's very important right now to pay attention, because relationships are going to be going through something big this winter. And I just can't emphasize that enough. Right now it's good to pay attention. So other than that, moving forward, the moon's going to square the nodes. And yeah, again, it's interesting because the moon's simultaneously now heading towards that decrease with the south node, and it's also in this balsamic phase getting ready to make a new moon. So now we're kind of coming into this halfway point, both with the sun and the moon. and this lunar cycle and this year cycle. And, we're going to start to move towards overall the story in general decreasing, but this kind of joining together between the waning of the moon and the decreasing nature of the south node. So meanwhile, that's happening, we also have Mars perfecting its trine to Pluto, and then Venus is trine Saturn. Oops. Wait a second. Venus is trine Jupiter. So this is like, okay, I know I've said all this scary stuff before with Pluto and Venus. This is like also this beautiful time where things are happening. There's a way we can tackle and deal with that which we are afraid of. There's commitment to relationships now. There's support from relationships now that's doing something powerful for the future. There's agreements that can help. There's truces maybe to old enemies. There's ceasefires. There's acknowledging that there's bigger problems in the world and we have to work together maybe to deal with them. I think Venus trine Jupiter from Saturn's exaltation while Jupiter is in Saturn's sign is generally, it's like a really good thing. And if I think really this is like one of those transits where if you're not using it for something significant, you're really missing this really rare and beautiful chance for the bonding and building of long lasting and significant things in relationships and in overall positive connectivity to the world around us. This is one of the best situations for this year, and one of the best situations for Venus in a really long time. Like I said it before, with Venus going through Libra, not having to square Saturn is pretty amazing, and also not having to make any harsh aspects to Mars too. It's pretty rare. So there's this energy and reward for both planets to do something, especially for Venus, to do what Venus is best at and is able to support and testify with Jupiter to support these things that are going to be outcomes that are reasonable, long lasting, world building, relationship maturing, bonding and understanding of this overall, faith and belief that, the wisdom we have in ourselves and in others is going to connect us to ourselves and to the world around us, and it's going to connect us to this world of coming and passing away. And I think this is a deep time of testing commitment, that of building and starting and enjoying commitment that will be long lasting, that will endure regardless, because we have that faith, because we have that hope, because we have that optimism that bigger commitments will stand, they will endure. But I think, again, I just have to emphasize that we should use this now, because next week Venus moves into Scorpio, and that's going to change a lot of stuff. So let's close down the real-time clock here. Come back to my beautiful face. Yeah, so that's it for the astrology this week. Next week, we're going to get a few more fun days with Venus in Libra. But like I just said, Venus is going to move into its detriment in Scorpio. And I think that from that point forward, things are going to get a bit uncomfortable again for Venus affairs, especially since Venus was in Virgo in its fall. And I think it may not be very pleasant, because Mars will be moving into Libra, its detriment, sometime soon as well. But anyway, so next week we got that new moon in Virgo. So a new lunar cycle emerges. Mercury enters its shadow as it gets ready to retrograde in Libra. So maybe some agreements, some contractual agreements especially, and truces may have reversals. We may have to rethink them, re-go over them, reestablish, design them, recalibrate whatever those agreements were about. And yeah, and then Venus moves into Scorpio. So that's it for this week, everybody. I hope that this transit videos were helpful. I know there's a lot going on out in the world, but I think that for the most part, a lot of us have been able to find good qualities, good in this pocket of astrology. So I wish everyone the best. Good luck up there. And if you need to walk away, just walk away. It's nothing wrong with bowing out. All right, everybody. Wishing all the best. Take care. I'll see you back here next week. Keep coming back. Bye-bye.